everyone. Welcome back to Ion Radio. I'm John, and this is a special Backseat Admiral. Today, we're going to be talking about the Chicago Open 2022 that took place on June 26th. It's been a while since that tournament actually took place, and the reason why I didn't cover it any sooner is a bunch of people asked me not to talk about it that were there because it was supposed to be like a prep for Gen Con. So now that it's officially being released after Gen Con, I'm going to talk about it, talk about my fleet, talk about the different fleets that I faced, and the event as a whole. So the event took place on June 26th at Games Plus Store. This isn't a sponsored video by them, but check them out. They have a great Armada community there. The owners were nice enough to open up early so we could get set up, so we could get all the people in and going as soon as possible. It was a 20-person tournament, and that's about as much as the store can really hold while still having other things going on in it. So we actually had people that were dropping out last minute, but we had an alternate list of people that wanted to play, and as soon as they found out that there was an opening, they still showed up. So it was a pretty big tournament in size-wise for just being a local tournament. So I'm excited to talk about this fleet that I'm going to be presenting to you. I originally came up with most of the ideas for it a long time ago. This was back in like 2019-ish. It was right after the Starhawk came out, and obviously this is going to be a Starhawk build. So I was going to be bringing it to the last Chicago regional that took place before Worlds. And you can see on our channel, I think it's like episode 9 or 10, it's the beginning, way near the beginning of Ion Radio. I was going to be bringing this, and you can see a variation of it there. At the time, because 1.5 wasn't in existence, it was a bunch of Rebel rogues and aces with Hera passing out rogue to the things that weren't rogue. So it was pretty powerful. But sadly, I had a death in the family. So I had funerals and wakes and things to go to instead of the tournament because, family first. So I wasn't able to bring it then, and it just kept in the back of my head of this is what I want to bring to a fleet, to a tournament and play. And then I was going to bring it to the last chance qualifier at Adepticon, but COVID happened and that was canceled. So this has been in the back of my head waiting to be brought to an actual tournament for a very long time. It has made some changes through then, mainly because 1.5 changed a ton of things, and then a couple new cards here and there, like point defense ion cannons. But for the most part, it still has that same look and feel of what I originally wanted it to do back then, but I finally was able to get it to a table. So let's jump over and take a look at what the ship looks like. So it is a Starhawk build. It is a battleship Mark II. I personally prefer the Mark II over the Mark I, and that's really just to do with dice range. And a lot of that is, here, let me just add in a ship and I'll show you. So if you look at what the Starhawk Mark I dice, it's almost the same, except you have an additional black dice in each arc instead of a blue dice. And your salvo is red, red, black instead of red, red, blue. So that's like the main difference is dice. And flak is blue, black versus red, blue. I think that the dice upgrade is worth it just for that 10 points. And the primary reason for that is this is my only ship. So I need to be able to shoot as many dice as possible as soon as possible. So if those extra black dice actually severely hurt me in what I can do with this ship because I'm closer range. And with only one actual battleship, I need the farther reach. Even if it's just one blue die, that's still one blue die. Red flak is also very powerful, especially with the suite of upgrades that it has. And I'll go into that when I get there. So I have my commander, Krista Agate, and she gives me an additional defense token. And I get to choose what this is. And we'll come back to it after I talk about the rest of the upgrades on it. But like you can tailor it specifically for the list that you're facing. And I think that's really important. For officers, I have Expert Shield Tech, which is great because you can just cancel out damage instead of taking it. Whale Explicix, so you can link him with Agate's Power. Agate's Power is basically like an ECM that you can discard a token to get its effect, and then the next time you activate, Whalix says, here's the token right back. So you don't really lose that much power when it happens. Add Caitlin and Sholin just to reroll dice in case things went really bad. Point Defense Ion Cannon, so if you come in close with me, I can reroll those black crits, or reroll fighter dice before trying to cancel them out with Expert Shield Tech. I then have Link Turbo Laser Towers for rerolling the red. Better flak. My flak itself is red, so I can reroll every single attack against a squadron at range. Now, Unity. It gives me an additional redirect. And it has the ability, while attacking a squadron, if the defender is engaged with a friendly squadron who is not printed heavy, you may reroll a dice. So if they're in blue range of my flak, I can roll a red and a blue, reroll the red with Link Turbo Laser Towers, and then if I need to, I can reroll it again or the blue dice with Unity. So you should be able to put out a significant flak field if you need to gain that fighter superiority over the other player pretty quickly. So let's talk about defense tokens. Unity gives me a redirect, so that means this ship is a brace, 2 redirects, a contain, and a salvo. Agate allows me to bring any type of token that I want, not scatter. So most of the time I'll be bringing a brace. So then I'm double brace, double redirect, contain, and a salvo. And that's mainly just to fight ships because you're going to need a ton of accuracies to keep me from doing what I want. Then if I'm not facing something that's going to have like a ton of firepower that I need the double brace, and let's say it's just like a fighter heavy list that I think is going to get through my fighter screen, I would bring an additional redirect, so 3 redirects. So that means I could cancel 3 different damage on attacks without discarding a token with Expert Shield Tech, which is bonkers crazy. Another option is to bring a evade, and that's pretty good when you're facing onagers. So like you have choices and you can tailor it to how you want to play that game. So you get to figure it out as you go. Most of the time it's just a brace, unless I've got a different plan. I have 2 GR75s. The first one has 8R Talon because fighters are powerful and being able to do a fighter twice is really powerful. And I will talk about that when we talk about the game. There's a trick that you can do with him and Squadron Lando that most people forget about. And once you forget about it once, you'll never forget about it again. So we'll talk about that later. Then we have a GR75 with Ahsoka and Comsnet. So Ahsoka is an interesting choice for me. And this is my get out of jail free if I'm facing a onager and an interdictor to drop me to speed 0, and I can then choose surprise attack if I want. And the reason for that is the reason why that surprise attack is so dangerous with the surprise attack is that they raid your nav, so you're speed 0, and then they use Cataclysm on the onager to shoot you turn 1. And there's only 2 ways, though, how to do that. The first way is to be Grand Moff Tarkin for the Empire, which you don't really see a lot, so you don't really have to worry about that, or using Hondo. And if they use Hondo, that means they're going to be taking a Confire and a Nav for their ships and giving you a Squadron and a Engineering on your ship. This allows me to guarantee that I can change whatever token I have on my ship to something else, so I can get rid of that raid the first turn and start moving my ship. So that's why I have Ahsoka there instead of another commander. Like, this is a really highly contested spot. Like, I would love if I could bring Torin Farr just to have that reroll of blue dice. But I think Ahsoka is technically the card that I need more. Okay, let's take a look at fighters. I have Lando Calrissian for his special ability, which is you can discard a defense token, and then you get a set of dice to whatever you want, and it can't be modified. We'll talk about that later. Then you have Char Bay to lock down fighters, because who wants to attack a counter 3 that crits count as hits? Terrible. I have 4 YT-2400s, which are rogues, so they can move around and do their own thing. I have 2 VCX 100s, which will give me relay range and also strategic, so that I can change the place of any of the tokens that I want. Okay, so that's the list. My objectives are advanced gunnery, because the Starhawk Battlecruiser Mark II with advanced gunnery is a scary ship. It can kill most things in like 1.5 turns of fire. Firing lanes. I have the VCXs that can move the tokens around, so I should be able to get those points. And then I have sensor net. Same thing. I'm going to just be sitting on my side of the board, token farming, if you let me. So that's the list. It's the scary part about the list is you only have one ship actually holding you on the table. So if they focus down your Starhawk hard and come in with a plan to kill your Starhawk, there's nothing you can do and you're going to get tabled. It doesn't matter how many points you farm with any of the other things. So you have to be cognizant of that, and it takes a bit of learning when to drop to speed 0, when to go forward, how to position yourself to get double arcs so that you can do maximum damage. That's the challenge of this. The fighters can pretty much wipe out any fighter ball. You play a little bit defensively with them to draw them in, and then you can flak them. The Starhawk's not really scared of squadrons that much because of the PICs and the expert shield attacks and things like that, but your fighter ball should be able to take them out. So that's the list. I'm going to jump to my first opponents. And my first opponent was Michael Muniz. And let me get back to the top of all these. Michael Muniz is the same person I played the last time I went to a tournament in round 1, which is kind of crazy. We were joking around that this is just the tradition. Whenever we go to a tournament at Games Plus, we have to face each other. I'm always excited to face him because he always comes with, so far, a Sato list, and it's some pretty cool things with Sato. Sato is one of those commanders, if you guys know. He's one of my favorite commanders, so I always enjoy seeing a Sato list that's good. So he is using the Providence class cruiser with Sato, ordnance experts, flak guns, and engine techs. One of the things that I learned from this, and what's pretty scary, is that salvo with flak guns. That means he's throwing a red, a blue, and a black at you at medium range. And if he has a fighter near you, Sato's ability, because you gather the dice up, which is what salvo says, and then right before you roll them, Sato swaps them out. So his salvo against you is 3 black dice. And he can reroll 2 of them. Yikes, that's super powerful. So I actually really like this ship. The next ship is an Assault Frigate Mark II-B. It has at least 2 red dice out of every side. So again, with Sato, you would be throwing 2 black dice out of every side. With ordnance experts that can re-roll both of them, and electronic countermeasures to help keep this ship alive. It's pretty light on upgrades, but you're just using it to throw dice. His next ship is a Nebula B support frigate. Refit, and it has a turbo laser reroute circuits on it and salvation. Salvation makes crits do 2 damage, so an additional damage instead of 1 damage, which is crazy. So with Sato, what you can do is you can swap 2 of the red dice out the front for blacks, and then that other red dice, if you don't naturally run into a double or a crit, the TRCs can just set it to a crit. And then that's 2 damage. So this thing can output a lot of damage if you let it. The bane of my existence is always his Bright Hope Torn Far GR75. So I'm going to have to deal with that in our game quickly. The last time we played, I was trying to Sloan off his defense tokens and didn't get any accuracies, but also didn't do any damage because of Bright Hope. So that was a thrilling it was a whole activation of activating all my squads for nothing. He has a squad ball consisting of Hera. This is the new X-Wing one. and this is not its ability, but the new ability is distance 1 to 2, you gain the power instead of it being like an on-off thing. It's just always on if it's in the bubble. Wedge Antilles. And 2 X-Wings and 2 Y-Wings. The 2 Y-Wings are there for health. The X-Wings are there to protect. And Wedge is just mean. So with Tauren and Hera, these X-Wings and Wedge can reroll 2 dice, which is scary when I have a bunch of generics and really no rerolls for myself, so they can chew through me pretty quick. So that's about it for his fleet. So let's check out how this game goes. Okay, so here's the setup. I had the bid. I have a 9-point bid. He had a 0-point bid, and he chose to be, well, I chose to be second. So he got to pick for mine. He chose firing lane. So you can see this is the starting position of the firing lane and the starting position of his ships. So at the start, I'm actually very worried about him being able to jump all of his ships in on me and be able to attack me all at once. And I just don't think there's much I can do about it. He's going to deplete my defense token. So I have to time my engagement so that I can shoot and try to kill things as they come in without just getting annihilated. So that's going to be a challenge for me. Into turn 1, I've pulled the tokens back toward me. And he's just positioning, so this is what I'm worried about. This death cage is going to surround me. Not going to be good. So we're going to have to play the waiting game of whose fighters are going to go first, and then are we going to be able to activate them? He moved in. Yikes. Look at all this fire that's on my Starhawk. Thankfully, the station's obstructing a lot of it, and that's one of the reasons why I have the station there. And I was able to use also the station's there, so then I can bounce my BCXs on and off of it so I can move the tokens. So as you can see here, we just did this because we were going to move, but I've started to stack the tokens. This is technically under his ship. This is just for ease of play. But the token is now there, and if the token's under their fighters or their ships, I automatically get them. So we don't even have to count the dice for this because of it just being under his ship. So that's kind of my plan now. As soon as he moves in, the tokens go under his stuff until they die. And as you can see, everything's crunched in. I did my little trick here, so let's talk about it. So this is Adar Talon, and that's Hondo, and none of his fighters are around. So basically what I did is I waited to the end of activating. So what he normally would be using to push his fighters, which would be these, I let activate. And then I jump Lando behind. And Lando rolls in his dice because nothing's around him to prevent him from attacking this Bright Hope into the rear. And then I just take the red dice, toss my brace away, and I set it to a double hit. And the rules are it can't be modified. What is a modification? Basically everything. You can't re-roll it. You can't cancel it. Canceling is a modification. So there's literally nothing that this flotilla can do to that dice. So this flotilla takes 2 damage. And then I Adar Talon it. Click. And then I immediately activate it again. So then I do the same thing. Toss the brace. 2 more damage. Bright Hope is gone. And it was really important for me to kill that Bright Hope, because all these ships have really good flak, and Bright Hope here just meant that he got to reroll like all of his double blue flak into my fighters, and it was chewing through my fighters way faster than it should, or what I wanted it to. So I had to prioritize taking the flotilla down, even though I have all these other big ships in front of me, but it was very important for that flotilla to die. We have now closed into super close combat range. You can see tokens are under his ship. This one's off to the side. I still have it, but yeah, this is an in-close brawl. Right here, the Providence has gone down. Fighters are swarming, killing his fighters, and I have now moved the token under Hera. So at this point, I know that I won't be able to kill this because there's no way I'm going to go after it. This I should be able to kill, like we'll just ram into each other until it's dead. So I can leave his squadron alive until the last turn, and then I can kill it off, and then I can get all the points. And that's what I ended up doing. So into the game state here, I've collected a ton of tokens, and I've already started picking them up, but there was just a stack of tokens right here that was right under Hera. I got 2 under her, so every turn I was getting them. So you can already see I ran out of tokens. So he got 1, and I got the rest. So the end of the game, I ended up killing 317 points of his ships, which is a lot. All of his fighters, everything but the assault frigate died. Then I got 17 tokens worth of 17 tokens for 15 points each, so 255 points there for a grand total of 572. With tokens and what he killed, he scored 49 points, which is a giant margin of victory of like 520 something, which just goes to 400 for a 10-1. So that was my first match, and that sets me up pretty good for a 3-round tournament. So I was pretty excited about that. While I grab this, let's start looking at my next opponent. So my next opponent is Hannah, and she also, I think, was the only other person during the first round to get a 10-1. So obviously we're going to be matched up against each other. Hannah is flying a Darth Vader double ISD fleet. The first ISD is an Imperial 2 Star Destroyer with Riva, gunnery teams, quad laser turrets, electronic countermeasures, overload pulse, XI-7s, and the 7th fleet title. That's all mean. I actually really, really dislike quad laser turrets because of the counter that it gains, because a lot of my firepower comes from my fighters attacking you, like my YT-2400s, but like you flak them and then you counter them, it just does a ton of damage that I just don't want to deal with, so that becomes a real big headache to me. The second Star Destroyer is a Kuat. It has the Emperor on it. It has local fire control. It has flak guns, electronic countermeasures, point defense ion cannons, external racks, and 7th fleet. So her idea is if she can hit you with overload pulse, boom, and then have this ship closer, if you attack, then you have to discard. So that's always a fun combo to try to pull off. The next ship is a Gazanti with parts resupply and boosted comms. Sienna Ray and Valen just to hold off fighters for the round or two. And then you have surprise attack, contested outpost, and infested fields for her objectives. We're not playing her objectives. She comes in at 400 points. We're playing my objectives because I have a bid of 9 and I kind of want to be farming points. So she ended up choosing Sensor Nut. So you can see here where our sensor, the red kind of blends in with the table, but there's one here, 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 and her. Her idea is to move into them as she moves across. My idea is to use my VCXs, pull them into me over here, and just churn points until she comes to me. I had her crazy out activated. So if you look, so 1, 2, 3, 4 deployments to my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deployments. So she was all on the table before I was even done putting down my fighters. So that's a huge advantage toward me and disadvantage for her in this event. So we get going. I managed to get the 2 tokens that you can get on turn 2 because of the way it works. I've moved my fighters forward and have started to engage with Rogue. Her fighters sitting here, like shooting obstructive still better than not shooting. And then like Sienna's already obstructed, and Valen, I can't shoot unless I'm obstructed to him. So I've started whittling down fighters. I am playing the token game here, and she's trying to figure out how to get across the table and into me. So what I want to try to do is I want to try to keep her away from me, because 2 ISDs is like crazy hard to kill. Even like the Starhawk's powerful, but that's just so much firepower that you have to be able to lay down. That's very difficult to do. So I want to make sure that she's not trying to turn into the middle. I want her to come down and around. That's why these obstacles I deployed in this way. So she would have to come like through them to get to me, which is annoying because who wants to take asteroids constantly? But that's it. Next turn. I killed the fighters. I have now prepped my fighters. I'm still playing the token game. When she activates and gets the token, I move the token the point toward me, so then I have another point that I can play with for my stuff, so I don't have to worry as much about the VCXs moving around. So this is where I imagine if this is going speed 3 now, it's going to end up down here. And this one's going to follow suit. So my Starhawk's going to try to curve through the middle, forcing her to go one of either side. Lando here is now setting up to do the same shenanigans against this, whatever it's called. My brain just blank. This Gazanti. So I can just get it behind it, discard, take damage, move it, discard, take damage. So that's my goal. We're going to try to kill it. I didn't have anything in command range, so I just start dealing damage to it, but nothing too crazy. And the ISDs are turning how I kind of want them. I see myself landing on this derby field, but I'll take 2 damage to get into a juicy double arc. I am now in like this long range, and I need to now accelerate my transports to keep them safe, but also need to keep them close enough that to these tokens that I can get it. So you can see here, like these tokens are now moving toward me, so I can now maneuver. I have like 4 tokens to play with to try to get near my ships. So that makes the job way easier. Hannah has scored 2. I've scored a bunch every turn. So you can see here, she's chasing me down. I have now the Starhawk double arcing into the ISD, and the ISD is going through this debris and all my fighters. I did the Lando comes over and kills you trick because it's just cruel against the Gazantes. Like, flotillas are such a liability when Lando's on the table because he's so good at just moving across the table and killing them right off. And like, that's a great trade. Like a ship activation for Lando's defense tokens, cool. Lando still has 7 health. It's going to take a while to kill him anyway. That's a trading those tokens out for a kill is well worth it. Okay, so with the fighters and the Starhawk, I managed to kill her flagship, and then this ship's here, and it's the only thing left. So I have all the tokens that I'm playing with, and she's going to take pot shots at my flotillas, which is not really what you ever want to do, especially when you have like 3 red dice or 4 red dice. Like, there's just not enough shooting to do enough damage. Like at long range, like the evade is almost as good as the scatter. And I believe this is in-game state. My ships just narrowly get by. I've played all the token games to try to keep them away from her. My Starhawk is just coming around. The game went pretty well. I think that is it. So the score for this round was again very much so in my favor. I killed 254 points of ships from her. I again had 17 victory tokens, 15 points each for 255 points for a grand total of 509. She scored none of my ships and these 2 victory tokens for 30 points. Difference is 479, 10-1, another 400 for me. So I'm feeling pretty confident now going into the last round that I have a shot at winning this tournament, because I'm sitting at 20 points and I believe second place is sitting at 18. And that's who I end up going up against in the final round. So as long as I win that, like looking at the rest of the tournament, everyone else would pretty much have to do 10-1. So as long as I win, I get to like 26-ish. And most everyone else then to get there would need like a 9 or a 10. And if we tie, I already have 800 points MOV. So I should then win. It's still down to the wire. So we'll have to see how the next game goes. So the next game, I end up playing Tom. Tom has a Ramadi fleet. It is also a double ISD, but these ISDs are here to rumble, and they're both equipped the same. So he has a Raider 1 with Ramadi. He's just lifeboating him there. And then both of his ISDs are equipped exactly the same, and they're both murder machines. They're both ISD2s. They both have skilled first officer to be choked out by Vader. Gunnery teams, so they can shoot multiple things. The dreaded, I don't like them, quad laser turrets. Electronic countermeasures, point defense ion cannons, XI-7s, and 7th Fleet. So this is kind of like a nightmare for me. XI-7s, and now I just use my redirects to take a damage off because like redirecting one doesn't really do much. I might as well just cancel the damage. If he gets in close, he can have me reroll. My fighters aren't as effective against it, and if I get a good shot, he can just ECM it. So, and he can redivert damage. Like, oh, I don't know if I have enough to kill both of these. Like the last round, I barely was able to kill any, or I killed one ISD, and the other one I didn't even bother to move toward. Now I am going to have to face down 2 of them at the same time. Not fun. Then he has a Gazanti with Comsnet and Darth Vader to feed these 2 monsters. And then like skilled first officers there so he can just get the stuff. He has no fighters, so that's to my advantage. So I have to maximize how my fighters operate so that I can do as much damage as possible. So let's check this game out now. He chose firing lanes, and midway through deploying obstacles, I realized that he's going to be getting Romedy dice on all of them, so that's terrible for me. But it's firing lane, so I just need to survive. Firing lanes should be able to get me enough points that I should be able to win this game, as long as I'm still on the table at the end of turn 6. So that's why you can see right here, I backline deployed. I have all my fighters here, and I'm going to move them into this space here so I can start shooting these guys. These tokens are going to be moved down here, and then I'm going to try to throw them under him as he comes into me, but it's going to be risky. I need all like hands on deck to do this. I dropped to speed 0, mainly because I need to delay that combat for as long as possible. Because if I move up, I'm going to be taking red dice and obstructed dice. Like, it's going to be bad, 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 bad. So I start moving the tokens my way so that he doesn't... I messed up token deployment, but didn't hurt me too bad. And then I move my fighters to start intercepting this guy as he comes in. So you can see now, this guy's here. My fighters are starting to engage. They're just whittling down shields. I have stayed at speed 0, mainly because we are just out of range. So that's a free turn for me right now, being out of range. Like, he can shoot at my Gazant or my flotillas, which is kind of fine. Like, I'm fine with you just chucking a handful of red dice at my flotillas. You're probably not going to be able to kill me, but it's better than shooting my Starhawk. I've collected all the tokens down here, and they're just sitting here waiting in my arc. And then I started counting, like, he has like 16 dice, so I'm going to have to reposition these because this isn't going to work. I don't want him scoring points off of me. Next round, I do something super, 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 super risky. I stay at speed 0 with this ship in my front arc. Luckily for me, the station was put far enough forward that neither of his shots are obstructed, so he doesn't get the Romney die. But this is just out of range, and this is just in range. Or they're both just in range. Either way, like, I'm going to be taking 4 dice to the front. And I decided, how bad could it be? I'll just take 4 dice in the front. It'll be fine. That's what I said. It was not fine. I ended up getting punched hard in the front. And then you can see I'm gathered the tokens to try to stay away from that guy for 1 round, and then I'm going to jump them back in, and I'm going to try to like stack them all on top of the Star Destroyer. Next round, he has now engaged. He has now pinned me. I'm now moving, though, because that round he rolled in 4 red dice for 2 doubles, a hit, and a crit. Boom, all my shields are done in the front on 4 dice, 6 damage. And I'm like, I kind of needed those shields. That's going to not end up well. So then I basically just start transferring my shields to the front. Every turn I'm like, regen, move them to the front. They got to go to the front. Thankfully, my fighters, as you can see here with these damage cards, my fighters have been chewing through him decently, and my salvo, and just attacking him in general. So hopefully this guy goes down soon, and then I have a nice double arc on this guy. But it's going to be close. You can see that I have stacked all the tokens pretty much on top of him, so I automatically get them. I think I messed up, and there's one that's over here that he's clearly going to get because he has like 16 dice on it. And where these are placed is so if I kill this, right now they would be double arced by my ship, so then I get maximize how many dice I have on it. So if one of these isn't here, I should still be able to get it, but it's in a precarious spot. And my Starhawk is just taking lots of damage here, and I'm like, I need it to survive because this is only turn, 1, 2, 3, 4, and he's already gotten a token, and he's done a bunch of damage. I need to survive 2 more turns without dying. So I managed to kill him. We are now moving the tokens under him, and it's all in on this Star Destroyer, and then I'm going to have to deal with this Raider. And what's scary about this Raider is that it can dish out a lot of damage at close range, and I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to have to sit here and take a ton of damage from it, and I'm already really, really weak, so not good. Into the game, I end up killing. He does a bunch of damage to me, but I just shred all my tokens. I think I discarded almost all my tokens except maybe the contain. Like, I just chuck tokens. I just need to stay alive. I don't need these tokens anymore. And on the last roll of the game, my YT 2400s came down and were managed to just kill his flagship for the table. But my Starhawk, I think, had like 9 damage on it with like no shields remaining, which is like, that's not good. That was really, it was way too close for comfort for me because like I could have all these tokens and then it would just not mean anything if he was able to kill it. And that's one of the weaknesses of this list. So let's talk about score. I tabled him. So 400 points. I scored 17 points of tokens for 255. Each round I actually got 17 tokens, which is kind of a weird number of tokens to be able to get every single round, but that's what I managed to do. So 250 points each round just from tokens. So that round I got 655 points. He scored 15. He didn't kill anything besides the... he only got 1 token when I misplaced it, and he had like 16 dice on it, which is crazy. So that's another 10-1, 400 points for me. So let's look at the tournament as a whole. And here is the ladder. So I end up winning. I was super, super excited. I've played in a bunch of Armada tournaments, but I've never really won anything. And while this is just a local tournament, I'm going to take it as a win. It was pretty exciting. I usually finish like in the top 25% / top 10, but being able to win this was pretty awesome. Remember what I was saying, like if I were to get a 6, I would roughly tie, and as you can see here, second place had 26 points. So if I had just won bare minimum, I would have had the 800 points from the first round to still win first place over Dan. So I had 3 wins, 30 points, 1,200 points. Second place had 3 wins, 26 points, 552 points. Adrian here came in third place with 2 and 1, 24 points, and 761 margin of victory. And then the player that I beat the last round, Tom, he had 18 going in, ended up with 19, and he took 4th place with 488. Ken also participated in this and ended up going against a whole bunch of people that were at the top of the table. I think he faced Adrian, and he had to face Daniel, who ended up taking like 2nd and 3rd, and he lost to them. So he ended up down here in 16th place with 352 MOV and 12 points. So that was the tournament. And it was a lot of fun to go to it and play this and practice it for Gen Con. I'm going to be bringing it to Gen Con. I'm probably going to make a few changes here and there, but I haven't decided on exactly what. So you guys will have to wait till my Gen Con recap to hear me talk about that. But I'm hoping to make day 2. Right now it sounds like there could be a top 8 day 2 with 4 world tickets on the line. So hopefully I'm able to score high enough to make it to day 2. And then also score high enough to make it into the world qualifier spots. That I would be just ecstatic if that were to happen. Let's see, what else can I say about this tournament? Daniel was the one running it, and he did a good job with it. And again, big thanks out to the store Games Plus for hosting it and always being good to their Armada players. It's really good when you have a store that has a good relationship with the player base. And sadly, I'm not able to go there as often as I would like because it's like an hour and a half away from my house. But they meet every single Sunday. And they're great for new players because they're always, anytime anyone's like, hey, I would like to learn to play, cool. There's people that are more than willing to bring to learner fleets and teach you on a Sunday. So it's a great group up there. And obviously it's a big group because we had 20 players show up and we had people drop out because of last minute family things, and people were able to fill it in, and we stayed at 20. So we probably had people like 25 people ish committed to wanting to try to come out and play on this day, which is crazy. So I think I'm gonna just wrap it up there. I'm excited to finally get this fleet out of my head and actually into a tournament, and it do really well. I do feel kind of dirty because 17 victory point tokens in each game is kind of disgusting, but that's what the fleet's designed to do, and it does it very well. The Lando trick really helped me kill off a bunch of flotillas that were going to hurt me. So I was very happy with the way this fleet runs. I am, though, worried about a couple fleet archetypes. I'm worried about CIS, hard sell spam. I just don't have the defense tokens to stay alive from that. They can just move speed 3 across into me and just throw 3 red dice like 6 times, and I'm going to melt. I only have 1 ship sitting on the table, so if I do come up against that, I'm going to have to be super, super strategic in how I maneuver my ship to stay out of as many arcs and to stay alive as best as possible. The other thing that worries me is double onager, because it's just really, really hard to face double onager when you only have 1 ship, because they're going to just line up and just blast you. So those are the 2 main archetypes that I am worried, and I just hope I don't face. So we'll see how pairings go. Now that I've said that, at Gen Con I'll probably face nothing but double onager. But that's the risk when you go to a tournament, is that sometimes you get really, really lucky with the people that you face, and sometimes you don't. So I have a good feeling of how much damage I can take, because I was able to just kill off 2 ISD2s, which is kind of not what I expected. But I still don't think I can face down 2 onagers. That's kind of like kryptonite for me. So we will see how that goes. So until next time, I'm John. You've been watching the Backseat Admiral on Ion Radio. Have a great day.